that Tuesday in Corona time is just day, that one day seems to blur into the next day. But we know that as Yidden, we are entrusted with the incredible power and therefore the responsibility to be Mekadesh time, to make time holy. And we just read a few weeks ago in the Parsha, Ele Mayadei Hashem, Asher Tikra'u Aisam B'Mayadam. These are the holy days, these are the holidays that you confer upon them the title of a Moed. We sanctify time by declaring time to be special. As Yidden, as Jewish people, we are never allowed to say that one day is just like the others. We woke up this morning, it is Sunday, but it is also Rosh Chodesh. It is a special day, and especially for us women, Rosh Chodesh is a tremendous Yom Tov for us. The very, very first thing we receive as Yidden, the very first thing, our first directive that's going to inform how we live our lives is HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, to count time by the moon, to sanctify time. No day is supposed to be just a day. Every day we have to sanctify, just like we take off a piece of dough and we declare that this is challah, harezu challah, and we take something which is mundane and ordinary and we bring to it an element of kedusha and it becomes sacred. We do this with time as well. So today is not just the day, it's not even just Sunday, it's Rosh Chodesh. And not only is it Rosh Chodesh, it's Rosh Chodesh Sivan, which is a very powerful and special month. And I'm excited to be here with you today to talk about it. Just to give you, actually, I wanted to have this on me, but I forgot to bring it, but I'll show you maybe at the end of the class. These classes that I give are based on a series of books that my husband has written. So I'm very lucky to get direct from the source. And it's a series called The Spiral of Time. And there's a book for every month. We have here someone on here who's a sponsor for maybe even a few of those books. And each Chodesh has its own book. And it's a very beautiful series to own. I think especially as women being connected to Rosh Chodesh, to be able to be aware of what is the particular quality of the month we're in so that we can use that energy to further our own spiritual development and growth is very powerful. Even though we say Ein Mazel B'Yisrael, that we as Jewish people are not controlled by the mazalas, by the zodiac, there is, in fact, an energy that permeates the universe, a cosmic energy that happens every single month. And even though we don't have to be controlled by that energy, if we're aware of it and in tune with it, we can make use of that energy. We can stand above it and use it for our own purposes, for our own growth and development, and for our betterment as people. So this month of Sivan is a month of tremendous growth and potential. We're in the third month now of the 3-month unit of spring. So each season is a 3-month unit, and the season of spring is actually a unit of Isarusa de La'ela, a time in which the way that we receive, for example, the sunlight in this month is very gentle. It's easy to absorb, it's easy to enjoy. And that's indicative of the way that we receive the quality of Hashem's light in this month, that it's a top-down energy. It's not a lot of struggle and effort. It's a lot of being gifted with the light. It's an easier set of months, and we experience the weather as such as well. So the whole world is experiencing an easier form of this light, of Elikus, the way it comes into the world, which means that it's easier to work with. Of the 3 months, just to go through it quickly, so you get a sense of the unit of time, Nisan is the right column month, which is represented by Chesed. So we know that Nisan is a time of pure kindness, of pure giving. ER is the left column, which represented by Gevura. So even though it's still one of the light months and one of the general months of Chesed, it does have more Gevura in it, and there is more struggle in the month of ER. And finally, Sivan, being the third of the three, is the synthesis of both Chesed and Gevura, the middle column, which represents Tiferes, or compassion. And this is a month in which everything comes together. As the Rebbe often explained, 3 is a very powerful number, the most powerful number. 3 represents the synthesis of oneness and duality. And we know that in a relationship, 3, or even in a shape, the triangle is the strongest structure known in the universe. And in a relationship as well, when we are 2 people bringing godliness into the relationship, we create a structure of 3, which is a structure that is eternal. So this is this month is a month of 3. It's the 3rd month and represented by Tiferes and by balance. The letter of the month in Sefer Yetzirah, there's a letter that's assigned to every single month that sort of encompasses the energy of that month, represents whatever's happening in that month. And we know that the world was created through the Aleph Beis, that every letter is one of the spiritual vibrations of the universe. So, and the world is being created at every moment with speech, with the Aleph Beis. So the letter that's reverberating in this month, according to Sefer Yetzirah, is the letter Zayin. And if you look at the structure of the letter Zayin, you'll see, right? It's a perfectly balanced structure. We have the line on the bottom and the line on top, which is almost like a set of scales that's perfectly balanced. This is the Zayin of this month. The sign of this month, the zodiac sign, is the Gemini, which is the Ta'imim, or twins. Again, representing this self and other, a relationship. 2 coming back together into 1. 1 dividing into 2, coming back into a greater 1. In Nisan, what we did, and every set of months really is like it's a progression of growth. So what happened in Nisan, we let go of all of our ego. We let go of ourself. We completely nullified ourselves, got rid of our chametz, as we learned from the idea that chametz represents ego, and the idea of clearing out the chametz is the idea of ridding of ourselves of ego. And we became like the sign of the month, which is the sheep, the Aries. We became very humble, emptied out, following. This is what happened in Nisan. In ER, represented by the Shor, or the bull, the Taurus, we go through more struggle, trying to rebuild our keli after we emptied it, rebuilding ourselves in a healthier, more balanced way. By the time we reach Sivan, hopefully through the process of the Omer, through the process of counting and dealing with all our emotional spheres, dealing with the midas and synthesizing each one with the other, we come to a place of balance and maturity, where we can begin to reintegrate the chametz into our lives, where we're coming to a place of ego from a healthy place, where we have an awareness of who we are in a healthy way. And this is interesting because on Shavuos, it's the only time in the year in which we brought up a korban, an offering of chametz, the Nshei Alechem. We brought up bread on Shavuos. So really, it's the culmination of this whole process of getting rid of the chametz, slowly building back to a place where we could reintegrate and have a mature awareness of who we are and a balanced structure. And of course, in the highest form of maturity is really the ability to be in a relationship that is panim el panim, face to face, where we are aware of ourselves, where we begin and where we leave off, and we're aware of the other. The tribe of this month, there's a shevet for every month as well, 12 months, 12 shvatim. And the shevet that is connected to the month of Sivan, the month in which we receive the Torah, we would think it would make sense that the shevet that's connected to this month would be Yisachar. Since we know Yisachar was the tribe that sat and learned in the Beis Medrash, they were sitting and learning Torah all day. But we never talk about Yisachar on their own. It's always Yisachar and Zvulun. They're a twin set. And whereas Yisachar was the tribe that sat and learned, was the studious, settled one, Zvulun was the restless, the merchant, the traveler. And we always talk about Yisachar and Zvulun as a pair, that it is a symbiotic relationship, that one cannot exist without the other. Whatever you want to call it, the learner, the earner, whatever it might be, but one needs the other in order to survive. And really every relationship is like that. So interestingly, the shevet of this month is not Yisachar, it is Zvulun, reminding us that every single relationship is symbiotic and everyone needs to merge opposites in order to create something greater, in order to create something bigger than the sum of its parts. This is the month of Sivan is an incredible month in which we're able to reap the rewards of all our hard work, harvest our fruits. And it's the time in which we offer up to Hashem the first and the best of the fruits. It's Chag HaBikurim, the holiday of the offering of our harvest and the season of the giving of the Torah. The Yom Tov that occurs in every single month, the holiday that happens in every month, is representative of that. It's like the peak of that quality of that month is represented. That's where we experience the peak of that energy of the month. And this month of Shavuos is the same. This month of Sivan, the Yom Tov of Shavuos, is the same thing. If you look at the word Shavuos, it's weeks. It's all about the counting, right? The leading up to this moment, the process of counting 7 weeks that we go through this process of longing, of separation, of wanting to come back to that place of godless, of connection. But the word Shavuos also is from the word savua, which is satisfaction. So here you have again the synthesis of the journey and the destination. And this is something I speak a lot about in my talks to women. We live in a very male-oriented world where it's very result-centric, and we want to be able to quantify all results, have it down, check it off the list, be able to see that we're finished and move on to the next thing. That I would say is a very male-oriented reality. But as nurturers, our work is really never done, and it is a constant process. And if we get stuck in that male orientation of wanting to see results, wanting to get to an end goal, then we live in a state of constant frustration and feeling unfulfilled. The real kunst, they say, in life, as a woman particularly, is to be able to understand that the savua, the satisfaction, is already there within the Shavuos. It's already there within the process. That if we can be completely present to the process itself and understand that it's not about an end goal, but the process itself is where we are, and that is the place we need to be, then we actually can experience satisfaction in the moment without waiting for something else to happen, without waiting for the kids to grow up, for them to move out, for the next stage in life, to marry them off. If we can just be in the moment and understand that what we're doing right now is essential and perfect, we can actually experience a very high level of satisfaction, even within the journey. So what actually happens, that was a little side note, what actually happens in during Shavuos? What is happening in the world during Shavuos? And how does that impact the month? How does it impact us? So if you think about what actually occurred on Shavuos itself, on the day of Matan Torah, We were standing at Har Sinai, and what actually happened? We did not receive the luchos on that day. We didn't get the tablets. We didn't receive anything written down, nothing that Moshe wrote down the Torah into longhand version. What did we actually hear? And of course, because we're Yidden and we have a Torah with many, many, many points of view, there are many different points of view on what we actually heard. Some say we only heard the first two dibros. Some say we heard the Aseres dibros, all 10. Some say we only heard the first two. Some say we heard only the first one. Some say we only heard the word Anochi, I, which is the very first word of the Aseres Dibros. And in Chassidish Sfarim, it actually tells us that we only heard the Aleph. We did not even hear the word Anochi, but all we heard at Matan Torah, this whole gathering, this whole revelation, we're all standing there. And what did we hear? We heard Aleph. Essentially, all of them are really saying the same thing. We heard exactly what we needed to hear at that moment. What was the revelation of Matan Torah? What did we actually receive? We received Aleph, Echa, the awareness that everything is one, that Elokus is pure, pure oneness, and everything that exists is part of that oneness of Elokus. And after that, it's all details that we can unpack later. But what was the great revelation that we heard? It was the revealing of the deepest intent behind creation, the marriage, the synthesis of heaven and earth, the bringing down of Hashem's deepest intent and desire for a dira b'tachtainim, for a dwelling place in this world, into the apparent separateness of this very physical universe. This is really the culmination of our whole journey from Mitzrayim, our whole journey, our exodus from Egypt, from our smallest selves, from our place of deepest constriction to a place of pure, true freedom. On the Seder night, on the night of the Seder, we're like newborns, just open to receive. Just like a newborn does not have to deserve to be taken care of, does not have to ask to be fed or to be loved. This is how we are at the night of the Seder. And we get this gift at that time, a gift of a glimpse into everything, the wholeness of the universe, the perfection of everything. It's a time of godless. It's a time of expansiveness, of a realization that there's a higher purpose. But at this point, we don't yet understand it. We haven't gotten to the point of maturity where we can integrate that. It's just like a glimpse. And we know in our own lives, sometimes we actually feel this. It could be at a random moment, just doing your laundry one day and the sun is shining and there's music playing and everything just clicks into place for that one moment. And we feel at peace. We feel like everything in our lives makes sense. And then we struggle to regain that sense of peace throughout the rest of our day or month or year, perhaps. Sometimes it's a moment of great joy, of tremendous simcha, when we let go of all of our smallness and all of our pettiness and all of our questions. God forbid, even at a time of sadness, when our hearts are broken open, this can occur as well. Just this letting go of all our katnos, of all our pettiness, our smallness, everything that holds us back, and just this awareness that everything is right exactly as it is. It's an awareness of we are where we're meant to be. But this is an awareness that's like a gift. It's like a revelation. It's a spark. And then in the month of Iyar, we struggle to come back to regain that vision that we have at the night of the Seder. But this time we have to work on it. We have to deserve it. We have to understand, what is this glimpse? What did we glimpse? What is this vision that we saw? What is the deeper intent? Why are we here in this world? The wisdom that is revealed at Matan Torah, the Aleph, the Echad, is the higher purpose of creation. We are being gifted with this awareness that there is a purpose to everything, that it is all part of a greater whole. This translates into our own individual purpose as well. If we are able to tap into this, we can receive more than just a vision, more than just a glimpse, more than just a momentary high of awareness, but we can understand it. We can really understand how the pieces fit together, why things are the way they are, why we were born into this particular family, into our particular circumstances, why things have happened to us, why have we made our choices, why we struggle with certain things, and perhaps other things come easy to us. How do we achieve this awareness? How do we achieve this godless sheni of Shavuos? After we have that glimpse, how do we come to this awareness in a way that is real and true and can stay with us and impact us? On Pesach, we're glimpsing something that's beyond ourselves. So to glimpse something that's beyond us, we just have to take ourselves out of the way. We have to get ourselves out of the way. That's the work of ridding ourselves of chametz, just getting ourselves out of the way, being open to receive on Pesach. But the tikkun of Shavuos is the exact opposite. The tikkun of Shavuos is to stay awake, not to fall asleep. We know that the night of Shavuos, the tikkun is to stay awake. You know, we're told that we are rectifying. Why is it called a tikkun? Because we're rectifying what happened at Matan Torah when the Jewish people, when the Yidden fell asleep right as they were about to receive the Torah. What does that even mean? They're waiting, they're anticipating, they're preparing for 3 days. Everything is like they've been given warnings and everybody's in a state of high anticipation, and then they fall asleep. Really what's going on is that at that point we didn't understand that Torah lo b'shamayim hi. That Torah is not something that's meant to be lived in a higher realm, that's meant to be experienced as prophecy, but that Torah is kihem chayenu v'arach yamenu, that this is our life. It's our lifeblood. It is arach yamenu. It's the fullness of every moment of our days is the Torah. In order to receive the Torah in such a way that it will impact us and change us, and it'll be a Torah chadasha, a new Torah that changes us in a way we've never been changed before. For this, we need to be awake. We need to be aware. We need to absorb it in a very real way. So the Zohar tells us that a person who stays awake on the night of Shavuos will be alive the whole year. What does that mean? If we come to this place of awareness of the connection to our source of life at this moment, to our higher purpose, then we are able to stay connected throughout the year. And then throughout that year, we are truly living at every moment, not just because we are breathing, but because we are alive, we are thriving, we are connected. The other way that we do this on Shavuos night is by reading the Tikkun Leil Shavuos, also a Tikkun. And what do we do in the Tikkun Leil Shavuos? What do we read? The Tikkun is really essentially, it's a compilation of little excerpts of all different areas of Torah. We take a little bit of Chumash, Kabbalah, Mishnah, Halacha. We take a little bit of everything. So what we're doing really is quickly going over all the details so we can bring it all back in to the source and remember the principle of it all. Here's what happens throughout the year. Here's what happens in our life. And I think in this generation, maybe even more than ever before, is we are a very, very distracted generation. Highly distracted. I think I heard, and this was maybe last year I heard this, so maybe it's gone down by now, who knows, but I heard that the average college student at this point in time has an attention span of 2 minutes. That's like a preschooler. So we're really a very, very distracted generation. And I think you can look at our distraction in 2 ways. Either we are so focused on one particular tree that we lose sight of the fact that we're in a very large forest. Or the opposite is that we go from tree to tree to tree to tree to tree, and also in that way lose sight that we are part of a very big forest and that each tree is part of something larger. Both these things are things that we struggle with, particularly today. Either we go down the rabbit hole, right? The YouTube rabbit hole or whatever rabbit hole it is of one thing that we go deeper, deeper into and get stuck, develop myopic vision. Or we just are jumping from here to there to and mindlessly from topic to topic. Either way, there's an imbalance and we're lacking a sense of the larger picture of our lives and of creation. And sometimes in our lives as well, this happens. A person could be searching for their bashert, or they could be struggling with parnasa. One area of their life which is really hard, or they feel like it's taking over, and then everything in their lives becomes skewed. Our perception becomes skewed. Rather than seeing purpose and meaning and a bigger picture, we develop myopic vision and see just that particular problem or need. So this is what we have to do. This happens to us a little bit in Torah as well throughout the year. This is very possible that we get caught up. Either we get completely caught up in Chassidus and we forget about halacha, or we get so caught up in halacha, we forget about Kabbalah, we forget about Chassidus, we forget about the mystical, or we're so into Hashkafa, we're not thinking about halacha, whatever it might be. We get caught up in the details and we forget what the overarching principle, the echad, the aleph, where it all comes from. It's interesting that when they describe the Gemini, the person who's born at this time, and I can relate since I am one myself, that we are a people who like to jump from thing to thing to thing. We have a lot of interest, like to do a lot of different things, have our finger in all the pots. And the tikkun, our shluchus, is, and a person who's a Gemini, but in this month, it's all of our tikkun to do this work, which is to take all those details and unify them and see the bigger purpose, not get distracted. Once we realize and understand our larger purpose, or even a glimpse of it, we need to stay focused and make sure that all the details of our life line up with the greater principle of the echad, the greater shluchus of our life, the purpose that we are put here in this world for. And this allows us to live life in general in a more balanced, aligned way, in a way that's true to our neshama and our unique shluchus in this world. As we heard before I started the class, the idea of eating dairy, of eating milk on Shavuos, Zav chalav tachas l'shayni, we're told that Torah is like mother's milk on our tongue. Just like we say that Torah is our life, it is purest source of nourishment. It nurtures, it matures the child. It develops the intellect of the child. It nurtures a relationship and a closeness with the mother. Direct receiving from the source of life. This is Torah in our lives. And when we have that milchik, we think about the chesed. Milk represents chesed, the white of milk, the chesed of the relationship that we're gifted with, to develop this relationship with the Eibishter, in which we are receiving from the source of life at every single moment. We are nourished from the purest, purest form of nourishment. So to receive the wisdom of the Torah, a Torah Chadasha, that will deeply transform us this month and give us a lasting glimpse, not just a momentary glimpse, but a lasting view into our particular shlichus in this world and into the purpose of all of creation. We have to let go of what we think we know. And this is not the emptiness that we're working on Pesach, of emptying ourselves of ego and being in a place like in Purim of Adla Yada that we don't know. I don't know. This is a place of the more you know you don't know. A place that comes from a place of das. Once we've worked on ourselves and we've come to a place of maturity, that is the place where we can be truly humble, where we can truly open ourselves up and say, I'm willing to listen. I want to hear something new. I want to receive something I've never heard before. So that when we listen to that Aseret HaDibros, whether we just hear the Aleph of Anaichi or we hear all Aseres Adibros, we hear it as if it's for the very first time. We are able to let go of what we think we've already heard and we think we already know. And we could say this is a Torah Chadasha. Machadesh v'tuva b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh b'reishis. The world is being created every single moment, and every single moment there's a new Torah brought into this world. When we say b'sein chelkeinu b'sarasecha, this in the Yehiratzim that we always say, we say, give us a portion in your Torah. Allow us to understand our part in the Torah, how our story is in the Torah, and how the Torah writes our story of our life. Every day before Shema, we say a special tefillah, which is Avas Olam, and I'll just end off with this because I think it's the perfect tefillah before the awareness, before we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, before we come to that awareness of Echad, we say this bracha of Avas Olam, that v'sein b'libeinu bina lahavin lahaskil lishmaya lilmoid ulalamed, that we should be gifted to really truly listen, to really truly hear, to learn, to be able to teach others so that it impacts us to do. V'ha'er einenu b'sarasecha, and our eyes and ourselves should be illuminated by the Torah of Chassidus, and that we should become truly transformed through Matan Torah this year, that we will all receive it together, Karv Mamash, and it should be a time of true Geula this year. When we receive the Torah, we should be Ki'ish Echad, Belev Echad, just like the original Matan Torah. Should be a time of the final Geula. The world will be whole and healed. We will finally understand the Echad of everything with Mashiach, and we should be Zaycha to be Makabel Torah, B'simcha, B'pnimius. We should be able to receive the Torah with pure joy, the inner awareness of what the Torah is and how it transforms us. And I just want to wish everyone a Chodesh Tov, Good Chodesh. And it should be a beautiful month in which we all can hug each other in real life with Mashiach here right now. Good Chodesh, everybody. Thank you for being here with me. I think someone else is supposed to come on now, but I don't know who's moderating here. There we go.
Please welcome Mrs. Menucha Shachat as she joins us and shares with us thoughts on Kabbalas HaTorah, B'simcha u'B'pnimius.
Yeah.
Okay, you hear me now? Yes, okay. Very sorry about the technical difficulties, and thank you for bearing with us. So a few years back, one of my dear students, she shared with me a story. She knows I love Rebbe stories, and she said to me, you have to hear this about my grandfather. Her grandfather is Mr. Reb Moshe Mendel Feiner. And Mr. Feiner had been through terrible things in the Holocaust. Miraculously, he survived, came to America, and built a family. And one day, with no explanation at all, his daughter lost her eyesight. And they took her from doctor to doctor. And there was one specialist that they were waiting to see that was their last hope. And when they saw the specialist also said, I'm sorry, nothing we could do for you. She'll be blind for the rest of her life. And he came home, and of course he was devastated and crushed. And after his wife went to sleep, he sat in the kitchen. He didn't want her to hear him crying. He had been through so much. He'd been through the Holocaust. And trying to imagine his daughter living her life without being able to see was too much for him. And he sat there sobbing at the kitchen table, thinking, if there's a Rebbe, help me. The phone rang at 3 a.m. He picks up the phone, and it was Rabbi Chadikov, the Rebbe's secretary. And Rabbi Chadikov says, the Rebbe wants to know, is there a tzara by Mr. Feiner? Do you have a tzara going on? Is there something wrong? And he says, in fact, yes. He quickly tells over the story with his daughter. And the Rebbe told him right then that he should take her to Kings County Hospital. And there he should meet with a certain doctor. The Rebbe said the doctor by name. And he would be the shliach to help her be healed. And that's what happened. And this really built a very special connection with the Rebbe. One time as well, he had a yechidus by the Rebbe. And he had told the Rebbe all about his different experiences in the Holocaust, which were truly miraculous. And the Rebbe said to him that he must remember to thank Hashem more, give Hashem credit for all the incredible revealed chesed that he saw in his life. And then the Rebbe asked him, is there anything that you need? He said, yes. In fact, he had terrible eczema. He had a terrible skin condition. Nothing had helped him. It was very painful. The Rebbe told him to return, to come back to the Rebbe before Shavuos. And he made an appointment, and he came to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said to him that in the days before Shavuos, before Matan Torah, all Yidden were healed of whatever sickness, ailments that they experienced. And miraculously, everyone came to Matan Torah healthy. And the Rebbe told him, so too, he should be healed of his medical condition. And of course he was. So I want to open and start with a bracha for everybody. All those that need a refuah shalema should experience a refuah shalema before Shavuos, before Matan Torah. Anyone who needs any brachas in their life, it should happen. And we should see clearly with our eyes. One of the brachas that the Rebbe would give in the months, in the weeks, the days leading up to Shavuos is the very special words, Kabbalas HaTorah b'simcha u'b'pnimius. To receive the Torah with joy and with pnimius. Pnimius is one of those words it's so good and it's so rich and very difficult to define accurately. With inwardness, right? With pnimius. And there's infinite depth to these words, of course, but I'd like to explore one insight today, what it means, Kabbalas HaTorah b'simcha u'b'pnimius. So during these days, of course, between Pesach and Shavuos, we learned Pirkei Avos. In Pirkei Avos, in Perek Sheni, Mishnah Aleph, there's a teaching of the Rebbe that when I learned it in high school, I was extremely taken. It really resonated with me. And it remains one of my favorite teachings that I share with my students. The Rebbe explains, right? The Mishnah reads Perek Sheni, Mishnah Aleph, Rabbi Yomer, Rabbi Huda Anasi teaches, he says, what is the straight path that man should choose? And he answers his question, Kol shehi tiferes le'oiseha v'tiferes le'mina adam. Whatever is beautiful for the person and beautiful to others. So again, Rebbe has this big novel question. What is the path that man should choose? He should choose that which is beautiful for himself and beautiful to others. There are many commentators that try to understand this. Some say it's based on the Rambam, to take the middle path, not to be extreme one way or another. be good to yourself, be good to others. But the Rebbe has a whole nother approach. And the Rebbe has very basic questions on this Mishnah. The Rebbe asks, first of all, what is Rebbe even asking? Rabbi Huda Nasi in the Mishnah, when he said, what is the derech yeshara, sheyavar loya adam? What is the straight path that man should choose? What kind of question? We all know what the straight path is, right? It says, Yesharim Dache Hashem, Hashem's Torah. Hashem's path is the path of truth, is the straight path. What's Rebbe asking? We all know, follow the Torah, that's the straight way. So Rebbe's question is not understood. And even more puzzling than his question is Rebbe's answer. Because Rebbe answers, Kol shehi tiferes le'oseha v'tiferes le'min ha'adam. Whatever's beautiful for you and beautiful to others. Now let's pause a moment. If this is going to be our litmus test, when we make a decision in our lives, is this good for me? Sometimes what's right is not convenient. What's right may not be so pleasant. So what does it mean, do what's beautiful for you, right? You could really go astray in that, if that's your calculation. And also, kol shetiferet lo'oseha v'tiferes le'min ha'adam, good to others, beautiful to others, pleasing to others. This sounds a lot like peer pressure. This sounds like just trying to please others. If we're only looking at what will make others happy, sometimes that's not what the Eibishter wants from us. That's not the derech Hashem of Torah. So what does this mean? The Rebbe asks, what is Rebbe really asking? And what is the meaning of his answer? The Rebbe explains that we're looking at this Mishnah and we're reading it incorrectly. We're putting the question mark in the wrong place. Instead of reading it, question mark, what's the straight path that man should choose? And then the answer, the Rebbe says, we need to read it like this. Question mark. What is the ultimate path in one's Yiddishkeit, in one's Avodas Hashem? What's the best way? Answer, Adam. That man should choose their Yiddishkeit for themselves. That a person with their own mind and their own personality, with whatever gifts Hashem gave them, should choose the Yiddishkeit, should say, I love this, I connect to this, this is beautiful, I own this, it's my own. And this is the ultimate. The Rebbe explains that this is Perek Sheni. It's the second phase, the second step. There was a Perek Rishon. Of course, the first step in relating to the Eibishter and Torah is Kabbalas Al. That's the first thing we say in Perek Mamalas Tanya, right? The beginning, the source, the root of all Avodah is first Kabbalas Al. But once you have Kabbalas Al, which is Perek Aleph of Pirkei Avos, Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai, you cannot remain in a state of Kabbalas Al only. If all you have is Kabbalas Al, then you can be relating to your Yiddishkeit like it's difficult, without feeling, without appreciation, without passion, and chas v'shalom, even resentment. So the question of Perek Sheni, the Rebbe explains, is, what is the ultimate relationship with your Yiddishkeit? After you have, of course, the prerequisite, the foundational Kabbalas Al, you have the Kabbalas Al. But now the question is, how can I bring it to the next level? That it should not only be a Yiddishkeit of routine, that I feel I need to do it, but I don't necessarily connect to it or relate to it, but rather, the Rebbe explains, it's necessary to bring your Yiddishkeit to the ultimate level, to the Derech Yeshara, in order to sheyavar loya adam, that you choose it, that you appreciate it with your mind and your heart, that it fills your inner world, that you're passionate about it. And I tell my students that this is crucial. It doesn't matter what your background is, right? Bali Tshuva, of course, have this incredible advantage or this incredible specialty that they have chosen their Yiddishkeit. They are sheyavar loya adam. They have it. They own it, right? Of course, perhaps this is something that a person needs to re-choose all the time, every day. But I tell my students, especially if you were born and you have the Yiddishkeit from your parents, from your home, and you're learning about it, you cannot just rely on, this is how I was raised, this is what I need to do. Every person must have their moment where they say, I choose this for myself. It's a pivotal moment. This is something I love, I embrace, it's mine. There's nothing more beautiful than this. Like the Rebbe explains, the continuation of the Mishnah, Kol shetiferet lo'oseha. The person realizes that this Torah, this Yiddishkeit, makes me a more beautiful person. It makes me a better person. It makes me more compassionate. It makes me more sensitive. It makes me more grateful. It makes me more forgiving. It gives me more integrity. All the qualities that make me a more beautiful person, a mensch, come from the Torah. And when the person appreciates and realizes what Torah does for them, for their character, for their person, then not only is it kol shei tiferes lo beautiful for the person, but it becomes tiferes lo min ha'adam. It becomes beautiful to everyone around you. You become a walking, breathing Kiddush Hashem. People look at you and they say, wow, someone who has Yiddishkeit, who has Chassidischkeit is such a mensch. They're such a happy person. They're such a lichtige person. They're such fine midas. They're so kind. They're so thoughtful. They're so selfless. They're altruistic. They look at this person and they say, if this person who represents Yiddishkeit is so beautiful, I want some of that beauty. And you spread that beauty to those around you. So kol shehi tiferes lo, you appreciate how beautiful it is for you and how it makes you push it, a bigger mensch and a better person. And you bring that beauty to everyone around you. And how does that happen? So the Rebbe explains how, if you look deeper, when the question is, Ezi derech yeshara, there really are different paths, even within Torah, within Yiddishkeit. How can I relate to my guf and my nefesh habahamis? And there's one path, and many followed it, the Prushim, and many thought that the way to deal with their body, the way to deal with their nefesh habahamis was to break it, to deprive it, to neglect it. They fasted, and they did all kinds of self-affliction, deprivation, abstinence. They looked at the guf, crush it as much as possible so it won't be in the way. And the Rebbe says, but that is not the derech yeshara. That's not the ultimate way of serving the Eibishter, of dealing with your guf and your nefesh habahamis. What is the derech yeshara? Of course, it's the derech of Chassidus, of the Baal Shem Tov that says, Azlik Tazav Imar, help your body, help your guf, help your nefesh habahamis. How do you get your nefesh habahamis on board? How does that happen? Of course, through learning Chassidus. When you involve your nefesh habahamis in the learning and you appreciate it with your mind, it affects your heart, it affects the way you feel, it affects the way you relate to it. And in this way, you're not crushing your nefesh habahamis, but you're inviting it on board, you're partnering with it to give the Eibishter the very, very best of yourself. And this is Sheyaver Lo Adam. Now the Rebbe explains, right, of course, this is what it means. Sheyaver Lo Adam is to relate to your Yiddishkeit, not only with Kabbalah Sal, but with Pnimius, with yourself, with your own inner world, your mind and your heart. Now, being that the theme of this convention is a new reality, I'd like to connect and bring in something the Rebbe said on these same words, just days after the incredible Sikha that shook up the world of Chavches Nisan, where the Rebbe said, I did all I can and I give it to you. And Chassidim were scrambling all over the world and meeting. What does the Rebbe mean? What could the Rebbe possibly have in mind that's left for us to do that we haven't yet done to bring Mashiach? And then the Rebbe spoke with Sikha. It was Shabbos Tazim Etzera. And the Rebbe brought this Mishnah. I'm only going to say it in very short. But the Rebbe asks on this Mishnah, Rebbe says, Rebbe Huda Nasi, Ezhi Derech Yeshara Sheyaver Loya Adam. The word for a man is Adam. And Adam shows on a very great level of a person. It's a person who has done all their part to refine themselves. And all that's left is Seif Levush of a little bit that's only not refined because of Galus. Rebbe was on that level. And the Rebbe says, our whole generation is on the level of Adam right now. We have done everything that was necessary in Galus. We mevared in Itzutzin. We've been through so much, and here we are. And now that we're Adam, and there's only a little bit, what is left? Ezei derech yeshara. What is left to be done to bring Mashiach? What is that straight path to Mashiach? We're almost there. We're Adam. We've done everything. What's the answer? And the Rebbe says, Tiferes. Tiferes goes on the level of Torah for so many reasons. Al Pi Chassidus, of course, Tiferes is harmony, is blending, it's balance, Chesed and Gevura. It's bringing together. In this Sikha, the Rebbe explains the two opposite directions of Ratzai, of running to Hashem, which is for the person, and then Shuv, which is returning to this world with Tiferes and Adam. The Rebbe explains Tiferes is Torah. It's truth, it's beauty. And how, which Torah specifically do we learn to bring Mashiach? The Rebbe says Malchus Shebet Tiferes. That day in Sri Yisrael was Malchus Shebet Tiferes. And the Rebbe said Malchus means in Yani Mashiach U'Geula. Malchus is Mashiach. We should specifically learn in Yani Mashiach and Geula to bring the Derech Yeshara to Mashiach. Why this learning? This is what the Rebbe was telling us. What do I want from you to do? What's left? To learn about in Yani Mashiach and Geula. Why? It's like the other pshat that the Rebbe gives. Because learning makes it pnimius. The Rebbe did not want us to relate to Mashiach only with Kabbalah Sal. We're going to scream Ad Masai because the Rebbe said to say Ad Masai. We're going to say we want Mashiach now because the Rebbe said to sing the song. No, that's not truly internally the Pnimius relating to Mashiach. So the Rebbe says, learn about Inyani Mashiach and Geula. Ezi derech yeshar shever Adam Tiferes and Malchus Shabbat Tiferes. When you learn about it, now you relate to Mashiach in a whole different way. What does Mashiach actually mean? Mashiach actually means, right, a world in which Elokus, the Eibishter, is revealed first in myself, in everyone around me, in everything that happens in the physical world. And we begin to relate, we long and we yearn for it with that Pnimius, and of course we can begin to live with it more. So this is the connection to a new reality. All of Pnimius comes about through learning, and specifically learning Chassidus. Now when I teach this to my students, especially when I teach them in Chumash, we learn about Shiluch HaKan, the mitzvah of sending away the mother bird when you want the eggs. And we learn a big Ramban over there. And the Ramban says all the mitzvahs are there to refine us, to make us better people. When we talk about all the stories that Hashem did and we tell you Yetzias Mitzrayim, it makes us more grateful. It makes us more in tune to the chesed around us. And when we are careful with all the Hilchos Shchita, it's to make us sensitive to pain and to be sensitive to all creatures around us. Every mitzvah he brings down kashrus, it refines us. Every mitzvah is there to make us more refined, more sensitive, more compassionate, more forgiving people. So they asked me a very good question, my students. They said, if that's the case, if that's what the Rebbe is explaining, right, that we should see Tiferes, it makes you a more beautiful person, then how come sometimes you see people that are very religious, very frum, and they don't seem to be such a mensch? You don't see on them this beauty. You don't see on them an elevated character. If the mitzvahs and the learning should change you as a person, then how come you find sometimes that this is not apparent? And that's a good question. We thought about it and I said, perhaps one insight, there's many, many reasons and many factors, but perhaps, right? Look in society. There's one group of people in the world that have a very selfless job. The police officers, especially those that work the night shift. The police officers are up at night when everyone else is sleeping, so we could sleep in peace. And there they are, such a selfless, noble activity day in, day out. So you would expect that those police officers that are patrolling at night should be incredible people. They should be the most soft, the most selfless, the most gentle, the most pleasant. But it's not necessarily the case. If you bump into a police officer in the middle of the night, he may be very grumpy and very angry and not so nice. So how come? Why is it that every day he's doing something so amazing, so selfless, and yet it doesn't change his character? Perhaps the answer is that he's not happy while he's doing it. He's not besimcha. He can be doing it from a sense of duty or even with resentment. And when you do something special, but it's with a heavy heart, it's with a sense of resentment, that doesn't change your character. The special thing remains a special thing. That's beautiful. But for it to change you, to make you a special, a different, a better, uplifted, elevated person, for that you need simcha. So the very same thing that you do, when it's done with resentment, doesn't change you as a person. It's incredible, but doesn't change you. When you bring in the simcha takes that act and it starts to seep in and penetrate and affect your actual character. Think about the Hatzalah members as a contrast. Special people who do special things. And therefore, it's the simcha that is so important to make it the pnimius. Like the Arizal, the Alter Rebbe brings the Arizal in Perek Chavav Tanya. The Arizal taught that greater than the light that one draws down through a mitzvah, is the light that he draws down with the simcha that accompanies the mitzvah. So the simcha has an even greater effect. The simcha draws down an even more light and it lifts you and elevates you more than anything else. The simcha is the key to open up the pnimius. And of course, pnimius invites more simcha. So the simcha and pnimius are interrelated. When you do something with simcha, it penetrates, it affects you in your innards, it changes you. And of course, when you're learning about it with a pnimius, you want to be affected, it brings more simcha as well. There was a Yid, Rabbi Nachman Bernhardt, and he was sent by the Rebbe, actually with the Rebbe's guidance. He wasn't an official shliach, but the Rebbe told him to move to South Africa when he had the question. And he was a big rabbi there. And he affected many Yidden. And after 10 years, did a lot of great work. He had enough. He and his family very much wanted to move to Eretz Yisrael, to make Aliyah. They had an incredible longing to live in Eretz Yisrael. And he came to New York and he had a meeting with the Rebbe, really just to tell the Rebbe his plans and ask for a recommendation for a replacement. And he wasn't really asking, should I or shouldn't I? But when he presented his plans to the Rebbe told him, he must remain in South Africa. There's too much work. There's a fire of assimilation. And he has the ability, he has the capacity to affect and inspire thousands of Yidden. His achrayus, his shlichus remains in South Africa. And he said, but what about Eretz Yisrael? I love it so much. The Rebbe said, visit often. And the Rebbe even gave from his personal money to Rabbi Bernhard. He said, I want to be a partner and give towards the expenses of a trip to Israel. Now, Rabbi Bernhard says to the Rebbe, he was devastated, really, because he so badly wanted to move to Israel. He says, okay, I accept that I must move back to South Africa. I will listen to the Rebbe. But their time was up and he had to leave. So he says to the Rebbe, can I please have another Yechidus on Sunday? I know it's unusual, but now I have more questions. We've made a whole paradigm shift. I'm going back. I have many more questions. Can I come back? The Rebbe said yes. And over that Shabbos, he was in Crown Heights. The Rebbe showed him tremendous kiruvim. The Rebbe showed him tremendous love and affection and encouragement. And the first thing he said when he came in on Sunday to Yechidus, to Gan Eden Elyon, is he says, Rebbe, thank you for the kiruvim. Thank you for those signs of encouragement. And the Rebbe looks at him and tells him, kiruvim are a two-way street. Kiruvim work two ways. He's taken aback. He says, I should show the Rebbe kiruv. The Rebbe says, yes. He's confused, and he says, but I already accepted on myself to follow the Rebbe's instructions, the Rebbe's directive to return to South Africa. The Rebbe said, yes. But to show kiruv means not to do it with a heavy heart, like one accepting a difficult decree. To show the Rebbe kiruv means to do it with simcha, with tuv levav, with a whole and happy heart. When you do it with a happy heart, now that shows closeness. That shows affection. That shows love. So when we want to relate to the Eibishter with a pnimius, we need that simcha. The simcha opens up the pnimius, opens up that channel. There's a story of Rabbi Meir Blazinski. Rabbi Meir Blazinski was a chassid in Tel Aviv. And every Shabbos morning, he would give a chassidus shir for the chassidim, for Anash. One morning, in walks a man that was obviously not from, and he sits down, put on a kippah, and he sits and he listens to the shir, and he walks out. And he returned for 3 weeks. No one knew who he was. And finally, after the third week, Meir Blazinski introduces himself, and he says, who I have the pleasure of speaking with. And he tells him his name. And Rabbi Blazinski was shocked, because this was a Jew who was famous in Israel. He was one of the leaders of Shomer HaTzair, a very Zionist and anti-religious person, or organization that he represented. He had an article that he wrote. He was very, very not religious and anti-religious. And here he was coming to learn Chassidus. So Meir Blazinski held back his shock, and he says to him, if you'd like, I'll be happy to share with you. I'll be happy to teach you from the beginning, from the basics. You're coming to this class, we can learn one-on-one. And he said, I would love that. And they made up to learn Shabbos morning at 6 a.m., 2 hours before the 8 o'clock shir. And he came every week, Shabbos, 6 a.m. to learn, and they were making a lot of ground. And Rabbi Blazinski saw his student was a very astute, intelligent, deep thinker, asked great questions. And finally, after a few months, Rabbi Blazinski turns to him and he says, now we learned a lot of Chassidus. You know a little bit what it means to Eibishter, what it means a mitzvah, to connect to him. Maybe now's the time to take upon yourself one practical mitzvah. Now this Jew, his face shut down. And in fact, he took out a cigarette, and in his house on Shabbos, he starts to smoke. A blatant, disrespectful act. Okay? You let it go? A couple more months pass, and again, he thinks the time is ripe, and he brings up, would you like to do one mitzvah now that you learned so much Chassidus? And the same reaction, he starts smoking in his house on Shabbos. Wow. Now, there were Chassidim that were passing by his house, and they saw this very, very brazen, chutzpahdik behavior, and they said to Rabbi Blazinski, what are you wasting your time with, this man? What are you wasting your time for? He's clearly not interested in changing. He's clearly not taking this to heart. You could spend your time doing better things. And Rabbi Blazinski heard their point. He really wasn't sure. So he wrote a letter to the Rebbe with his dilemma. The Rebbe responded to continue learning Chassidus, but not to mention another word about doing a mitzvah, about practical observance. Okay, he had a clear hurrah. He continued teaching every Shabbos morning. And about a year after they began, out of the blue, this Yid turns to Reb Meir Blazinski and he says, how would I go about writing a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe? Wants to write a letter to the Rebbe. He says, yeah, you might be surprised, but I have a question. Not even you could help me. What's my question? He said, you didn't know this, but I was writing every week a column in a newspaper about religion, about philosophy, theology, and I explored every single religion that exists in this world. And one day it occurred to me, I tried everything. I wrote and explored every other philosophy and theology, but I never did my own. I don't even know the first thing about my own religion. So I decided I'm going to find a Torah class, but I decided I'm going to relate to this learning the same exact way as I related to all the other studies. Purely theoretical. It's theory only. I will not change my lifestyle or behavior as a result of this study. That's what I committed myself to. This is going to be pure philosophy, theoretical, not practical. And he said, therefore, when you asked me to do a mitzvah, I apologize. It was very rude, but I shut down. That was not what I was here for. And when you did it a second time, I told myself one more time and I'm going to stop learning Chassidus. Miraculously, he stopped. Or he didn't know the Rebbe gave him those instructions. But he said, now I have a dilemma. So the strangest thing is happening to me. I'm starting to feel things. I'm starting to think things that I never in my life thought possible. The other day I was in my non-kosher restaurant, as always, on Wednesdays with my friends. And I have this thought keep going through my head. Why am I sitting here? I could eat in a kosher restaurant. And I'm starting to feel bad about Averis. And I want to do a mitzvah. And I don't know where this is coming from. Now, he says, to take on the Torah and mitzvahs would be a clear sign of defeat. It would be so embarrassing for me to show the world that I was wrong my whole life. It's very difficult. But if I stop learning Chassidus now, then that shows that I can't face the truth. So I have a dilemma. It's not hard to imagine what the Rebbe responded. This man became completely shomer Torah and mitzvahs. In fact, he was instrumental in bringing, with the Rebbe's guidance, shluchim to completely irreligious kibbutzim to show them the beauty of Shabbos. So, look at this story. Here you have a Yid who made a firm decision not to be affected by the Chassidus that he was learning. His heart was closed, but his mind was open. He was intellectually open. And look how it affected him to such a degree. It went inside deep. It penetrated his being that he literally turned around his life with tremendous courage. Now here we are Chassidim. We're Chabad. Right? Chabad, we understand. We appreciate what it means, Chassidus. We love Chassidus. We want Chassidus. Not only are we Chabad, we're Nshei Chabad. We're the women of Chabad. So that's a milah within a milah. Right? It doesn't get higher than that. So we who have this desire to connect, if we can all take upon ourselves to just bring a little bit more of that simcha, it's not how much we learn. It could be even something little. It could be one hayomim, right? It could be the Tanya of the day. If you have time for more than that, even better. But when you approach it with simcha and with a genuine desire to be affected by what you're learning, then what happens? It really goes b'pnimius. The simcha brings the pnimius. And we're at the forefront. And we have the ability to bring the Yover Loya Adam, to choose it, to love it, to embrace it, to be passionate about it. And as women, we have so much power. Tiferes La'isel, that beauty shows on us. And Tiferes La'min Adam, we transmit and we spread that beauty all around us, to our families, to our surroundings, because we represent this Yiddishkeit and the beauty of it. Now, I started with a bracha, and I want to conclude with a bracha. Rabbi Levi Goldstein, that the whole world was davening for 2 months. And we all watched as he had the most incredibly miraculous recovery. Now, Rabbi Goldstein is my uncle. And just as everyone was saying Tehillim on our family, we were very much saying Tehillim. We split it every day. We were saying Tehillim for Reb Chaim Levi ben Chana Priva. I remember that between Purim and Pesach, it was actually at the end of Adar, the Chavtes Adar, my cousin Zalman Goldstein went to the aisle, of course many times, but he went and he poured out his heart. And he opened up Chelek Yitzayin, and he posted a picture of his letter from the Rebbe that he opened to when he was davening for a full shalema for his father. He posted it then, Chavtes Adar. And I remember looking at it with a nice bracha for a full shalema. And I thought to myself, please, halavai, it looked like the situation was so serious and dire and critical that it would need absolute openness for him to have a refuah at that time. We kept davening. Now the whole world last week was watching, and which heart wasn't moved when we saw Rabbi Goldstein with his eyes open, sitting up and singing, I believe in Hashem, I trust in Hashem. We watched that, and every heart was filled, overflowing with such emotion, such a Haidul Hashem Kitai feeling, such joy. And then when we watched him with his own feet walk out of the hospital, and his son Zalman, his voice trembling with emotion, saying the bracha, who couldn't be touched and cry. And I sat there watching it over and over on my phone with tears. And then one of my cousins reposted that letter from Chavtes Iyar and said, Chavtes Adar, 2 months ago. And she said, look again. And I started to read the letter again. And I read it closely and I was blown away. This is a letter that the Rebbe wrote 2 months ago. And the Rebbe was speaking to someone who needed a refuah shalema, that they should be chayzer leitana, they should return to their strength. And the Rebbe wrote there, especially in the days before Shavuos, there's tremendous refuah that comes to the world, and especially for Bnei Yisrael, who are mekabli the Torah, who receive the Torah. And therefore, the Rebbe says, he quotes the Mechilta in this letter, and he says that there, all Yidden at the time of Matan Torah, the original Matan Torah, all Yidden were healed of whatever maladies and ailments and medical conditions they had. They came to Har Sinai. And today is Rosh Chodesh Sivan, right? When they came to the Har Sinai, B'riyim u'shleimim, healthy and whole. I was blown away because it was literally in the days before Shavuos. And then I looked at the date. And the date of the letter from 2 months ago was Chav Hei Iyar, the very day that the family received the b'sura that they would leave the hospital, and that Rabbi Goldstein was able to leave. He was healthy enough to return home. The Rebbe's letter was dated Chav Hei Iyar, the day they received that b'sura he would leave the hospital. How amazing. So just like decades ago, Mr. Feiner went to the Rebbe and the Rebbe told him this vart, and he was healed of his physical ailment. His eczema disappeared miraculously. And just like today in our times, we witnessed an incredible miracle. The Rebbe's words are chayim v'kayamim. The Rebbe's brachos are here. And just like Rabbi Goldstein and he, Reb Chaim Levi ben Chana Priva, and all Chayli Amma Yisrael should really return to their full strength. Everyone could say with me, anyone who needs should have an absolute refuah shalema in body, in soul, in mind, and heart. And anyone who needs a Yeshua of any form should have their Yeshua, whether it be for shidduchim, whether it be to have children, to have healthy children, to have chassidish nachas, to have shalom bayis, to have parnasa b'harchava. Every single bracha should be actualized in these days before Shavuos. And in the schus, that here we are, and we want nothing more. We've been through so much. The Rebbe calls our generation Adam. We've already refined and done the avodah, and we're still here. We've been through so much. We're still here. And all we want more than anything is for Mashiach with a pnimius. It's not a Kabbalah soul. We want Mashiach now. It's a pnimius dikratzen. We want Mashiach now from our inner depths. The Eibishter should see us. Nshei Chabad, this we want more than anything. And he should grant all of us to have the revelation of the Torah Chadasha, the Torah of Mashiach, the Malchus Shabbat Faris. And all of us will come every year, those that passed on, Chias HaMeisim, and everyone who needs will gather together. And for Shalema, the Chaim Shneir, Zalman, Yehuda, Ben, Hind, Tzipora. Everyone together, B'riyim, Ushleimim, healthy and whole, together with the Rebbe in the third base HaMikdash, when we will be Mekabel, the Torah, with the truest Simcha, and the greatest Pnimius, may it be immediately now. L'chaim. We don't hear you.
Amen ve'amen for all the beautiful herzige brachas from Menucha L'Shochad. Thank you, Rochi Pinson, for your beautiful inspiring words. Thank you for helping us prepare for Chag HaShavuos, for Matan Torah, Torah Chadasha, B'simcha, B'pnimius. And yes, we should all experience refuah shalema, refuah saguf, refuah sanefesh, healthy body, healthy soul, totally besimcha or bepnimius, and we should greet our Rebbe Melech HaMoshiach immediately. All participants, thank you for being here for the Rebbe's convention, and please join us again for the main session, 3 p.m., same station, home and together in 770 in Yerushalayim Abnuya. Tell more friends to come. We should be Kol Godel Yaviu Heino. We should all come together to greet Melech HaMoshiach.